were it not for my love of Debbie Reynolds, I probably never would have discovered the Halloweentown films. Or at least, I wouldn't have been in a rush to watch them when I first saw them on Disney+. And I've had a lot of fun watching all of the films. And I finally made it to Return to Halloweentown, which is the 2004 film, directed by David Jackson. And there are some things that are a little bit different about this. That definitely makes it the weakest of all four Halloweentown films. And basically, at this point, Marnie and Dylan are going to go to college at Halloweentown University, which I think is a very exciting concept because they're going completely away from the mortal realm and having a Halloweentown education with all of the paranormal beings and supernatural activity, and it really opens the doors up for a lot of fun. And the narrative itself is okay. I think it's a good idea. The characters, the protagonists are getting older, they have new opportunities, and in terms of character development, I think it works well. There are obviously certain obstacles that Marnie needs to overcome, and we get a deeper look here into the history of the Cromwells and her ancestry and where she comes from, and that aspect I found really interesting. So the narrative itself is pretty decent, and for the most part, we have our favourite characters here. Gwen is played by Judith Hoag still, and Dylan Piper is Joey Zimmerman. Agatha Cromwell, barely in it, but played by Debbie Reynolds, of course. I wish she'd been in it more, but not the end of the world. And then we have a problem, and it's a problem that I don't know, well, there's no reason for it, and I don't know anybody who agreed with this decision. Marnie Piper is played by Sara Paxton, possibly Sara Paxton. I apologise if I've mispronounced it. And I want to say, first of all, nothing wrong with her acting. She fits the role well. Actually, she kind of looks like Marnie of the previous films. In terms of casting, were there a necessity for the casting, it would have been pretty good. But there is no known reason why Kimberly J. Brown was recast. According to the trivia on IMDb, she wasn't even offered the chance to do this film. She was available when they were filming it, and for reasons that are currently unknown to me and seemingly unknown to everybody, the role was recast. I have no idea why. I find that very bizarre. But once you kind of look past that, like if you say, let's say for example, the role was recast because Kimberly J. Brown didn't want to do it or whatever, then I think the recasting is pretty decent and they actually did a good job with that. And obviously the acting across the board for everybody is great. I really like the CGI. Pretty decent stuff for the early 2000s. It takes an interesting location, being at the university, and I think it runs with it pretty well. We have some good character development. I can't really fault it. It's nothing, phenomenal. By no means is it my favourite of the Halloweentown films. I guess my favourite's just the first one. I think. I'm not 100% sure. It's hard to decide. But I love Debbie Reynolds. Just throwing that out there. Not a bad film. As far as sequels go, or the fourth film, it's still going relatively strong. I think after this one, they could have potentially done another one if they wanted to. It hasn't fully milked everything at this stage. It would actually be quite interesting for them to reboot this series. Maybe with Marnie's daughter or son or whatever. That would be quite fascinating to see where she is now and what her life is like now. But then we wouldn't have Debbie Reynolds. So maybe I'm going to retract that. Either way, Return to Halloweentown, I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was pretty decent. It's not without its problems. Don't understand the recasting. Aside from that, definitely worth watching. Still on Disney Plus, to the best of my knowledge. If you like the other Halloweentowns, definitely check it out. I'd say watch them in order, but they're pretty decent, so you'll very quickly get to this one. It's not a bad film.